All right, it is Thursday, September 5th. For many folks, for a lot of folks, for America, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Football, Lord football, NFL football has arrived. For that and a whole lot more, here's Riggins.
It's so odd you say that. I was literally driving down. I was going to burst in. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Obviously, that started out, I think, Andy Williams singing a Christmas song, right?
Indeed.
Then somebody caught on to it, like Staples.
Staples.
And they started singing
We're back to
in
school.
August.
Back to school.
Yeah, they showed kids going in with glum faces, which I got to admit, that what do you call it? That ad hit home.
That campaign where the parents are gliding on their carts and they're smiling and loading the stuff
and the kids are just slump shouldered. Yeah, but what's weird about it is I haven't noticed it so much this year. But regardless, when August hits, I tell you what, for the longest time, I would go into a funk. And because it was just years and years of knowing it was school, and then, I mean, I hate to say this, but it was football, and it wasn't so much the football, it was the practice. Going to Carlisle. You know, at 4th of July, when 4th of July rolled around, I was walking around like this. Oh, God, I gotta go to Carlisle. And I always likened Carlisle to, giving the county 30 days, because you were in lockdown. It was like, I think I could have pulled a little time in prison if it came down to it. I mean, I don't want to, of course.
Well, interesting point. Was there a big difference, you coming out as a rookie with the Jets, number one pick, in the progression of how much you had to put into training camp between the start as a rookie by the time you came here as a grizzled veteran with the Redskins?
Well, it's interesting you say that. First of all, and this is an irony, maybe it's because the season's beginning, but I was just thinking last night as I was laying there half asleep, and I started thinking about football in my rookie year, and I tried to remember the practice facility we had, and of course, you got to remember, this is over 50 years ago, 50 years.
Wow.
When I started, the league was 50 years old, so now it's now it's 100 years old, a little over 100 years old. But I was trying to remember, and it was at Hofstra University,
right.
And I was trying to remember, because I know the dorms were over on the other side of Hempstead Turnpike. So I'm trying to think, we must have driven our cars over to practice, and we practiced on a field there. And I mean, there was no air conditioning in the building, what I recall, and the training room was just like, it was not high test. It was, very, and then eventually the Jets they did a lease with the university, and they went to the other side of Hempstead Turnpike.
They allowed you on campus, you heathens?
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, for about 6 weeks during the summer, and they built a complex over there, and like I said, I was trying to remember all that stuff. But going in, it's interesting you asked that question, because I had just come from the All-Star game in Chicago, so I wasn't up to speed. I'd been there for 2 weeks. And so camp had been open, and everybody kind of, and you're the new guy, you're the first-round draft pick. Everybody's looking at you, and they're going, okay, what? Because the Jets hadn't had a lot of success with their number one picks. Well, their running back picks in the last few years, so it's kind of like, what's this guy got? But I didn't know, how I was just a dumb rookie, and so we're practicing, and I just run up the line of scrimmage and get past the linebackers, and I just turn around and go back to the huddle. And Weeb pulled me aside, who was the head coach of the Jets, Weeb Eubank.
I gotta imagine that was old school blaring whistle.
I don't know if Weeb had a whistle or not. Now you bring it up. He may have, but I don't really recall. But anyway, he said, listen, around here we kind of like, run past the defensive backs. And, all I need is just
finish the play, Riggins.
Well, Weeb was never like that. I mean, he could get angry, but I never saw him do it on a football field.
Really?
Yeah, he might, when he was addressing a team, if he had an issue or something, he might. But I never saw him really. He wasn't a Marty type, Schottenheimer type guy.
He seemed a little more cerebral.
I really liked Weeb. I mean, but the problem with Weeb was he was a GM too.
Oh.
And the Jets were probably one of the Namath got all the money, so we just got. It was kind of like, what do you call it? Namath was like a bluefish. The bait fish comes in, he just went through all that bait fish and just tore it all up. And the rockfish, like myself, we were down on the bottom waiting for the dribs and drabs to filter out through the water. But no. So yes, and to answer your question, there was a tremendous difference from being a rookie, and just catching on. It didn't dawn on me until after my second year that I as they say in the astronaut world, I had the right stuff. And then all of a sudden, because I was the smartest guy in the room, it was like they say, the best of times, and it was the worst of times. It was not good for me to be aware of my special talents the way I was, because I'd be known to cut a corner or two. And basically, what you're saying is, as times went on, yeah, I mean, you got to the point where you knew what to do, and when it's kind of like you told me at the sniper school years ago when I used to go down there a little bit, and I remember the commandant down there, Dave Willis, and Dave was telling me how these guys get up at 4 a.m. They go to bed at midnight. They get up at 4 a.m. and that's their camp. And he said the guys that get through here, usually they're country boy type guys like me. And the city guys got too much stuff going on. It's like they got to have action.
Mine's polluted.
Yeah, probably. But anyway, he said the guys get through this are the guys that know when whatever we're telling you isn't really all that important. And they nod off and take a little nap. So I'm thinking I became one of those guys, and maybe it's because I'm a country boy. So, the season's all starting, and here's what gets me. And just in your introduction, was that I am floored. Think about 50 years ago, my rookie was a little bit more than that now, but it's 1971. That football was growing, but it was. I mean, college football. NFL football, and I don't know, I wouldn't know how to, juxtapose the two now necessarily. I have to believe NFL is still more popular than college football. Back then, it was probably 50-50. I don't know what that scale would look like now.
You're right, because back in the day, college football and from the Notre Dames and the Michigans and your big schools and the big rivalries and
California schools, USC.
Versus the modern day NFL was still relatively new in 71 with the AFL-NFL merger.
Right.
And you didn't have the national coverage to the degree, anything remotely close to what you have today. But yeah, those old school loyalties and legacies from college, you're right, it was probably close to 50-50 in the 60s.
Anyway, it dawned on me, and this is kind of getting not far afield, but just off a little bit from football, which I'll get back to. And I don't want to get too deep into this anyway. But
go deep, Riggo. Go deep.
Oh, you want me to go deep? We're going to be here a while if I go deep. And once again, no, I take that back. All my thoughts. I was going to say great thoughts. I've never had a great thought in my life. Who am I kidding?
Check that.
Who am I kidding? But so I'm thinking about fantasy. Human beings need fantasy constantly. And nothing, for whatever reason, NFL football has somehow got into the human psyche in America. And actually, we'll take it a step further. Take soccer, which is even worldwide way more popular than football.
By miles, because everybody can play soccer. You kick a ball with your feet. Doesn't take a lot. They'll kick cans and.
Well, wait a second now. You got to be pretty talented to use your feet. I mean, when's the last time you tried to light a cigarette with your foot? Or with your feet.
I bet if I wanted it bad enough.
Now, a chimpanzee can do it, but you can't do it. But I was just thinking about fantasy. It's such a something that the human mind goes to constantly. TV, acting. Look, everywhere you do. I don't want to get too far down it because I was going to say, but when you believe in something you can't see, and I'm just going to leave it at that. That seems like fantasy to me, but, so be it, whatever it is.
Create the illusion, you've always said.
That's what life's all about, creating the illusion. Let's just say it works more often than not. But yeah, so where I'm going with this is this country is addicted to football. It is addicted, and it is just as pervasive as any drug. Obviously it doesn't. Well, it depends now. It's ruined a few lives because there's also that gambling element to it.
Oh, some of the numbers and stats and figures I'm going to throw out to you today are mind-boggling. To support your thesis, which has been confirmed for many, many years, Professor Riggins, that we are a football nation. It's tribal, as we have discussed in the past. And the excitement going around tonight's game, I already want this first game to be over. It's already like exhaust. You can't escape it.
I've escaped it.
You can. No, you have not, because you already came in today and saw some of the commercials you saw for college football and some of this.
You're right.
And you can't escape.
But how far? But you consume more than I do. You're that guy.
Well,
you like golf. You watch golf. I'm not a sports guy, so it's kind of just like it comes and it goes. But you're right. Just what you told me earlier before we started the podcast. You can't escape it.
No.
I'm looking at some article, and all of a sudden it's Texas and so this weekend, and don't forget the doubleheader, and
Right.
it's like, come on, I don't need to. Don't do that to me. But
This
go
is a
ahead.
humongous day. You kick it off as the Kansas City Chiefs are going for a three-peat. So,
Yeah, that's the other part I saw.
and
That's never been done.
I think there's a 3-year stretch with the Packers in the 60s, but again, not with the modern day NFL. I believe the Packers did it back in the 60s.
But Joe Green said something about, that was one for the thumb.
Right.
Wasn't it? But
Yeah.
I thought there was I know what that is. That's, isn't that the basketball guy? He did something with and coined the expression, wasn't it? 3-peat or something, wasn't it?
Well, Pat Riley.
Pat
Riley did that initially in the NBA. And
it was 3-peat,
yeah,
correct?
and he trademarked it. He sure
Correct.
did. But this is rarefied air. I mean, for the Kansas City Chiefs to embark upon this is pretty remarkable, and they are the favorites by quite a bit going into this. They play the Ravens tonight, who are they're right up there as one of their top. I mean, this first game you could see a repeat of the AFC Championship already off the bats based on previous performance, as you like to say. But
who was the AFC Championship? Baltimore or Kansas City?
I believe so last year.
Okay.
I believe so.
And so they're starting them off where they left
Yeah.
off, kind of.
Yeah.
In a weird sort of way.
And the second game that we discussed that is going to be played down in Brazil for the first time
This weekend?
tomorrow on Peacock. And that is your Green Bay Packers, Philadelphia Eagles. And what's fascinating about this, John,
By the way, let me stop you and we'll get back to this. I was thinking to myself, Philadelphia, Andy Reid, how do you like me now?
well,
I mean,
yeah.
that's stunning. To me, he really had great success in Philadelphia. But
Humongous.
Somehow somebody's going, it ain't quite what I was thinking.
Well, hell, Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl for him, and see,
Philly, hey, you know what? I think the fans make the decisions in Philadelphia because let's
sports
face it,
radio.
When you're booing Santa Claus, I'm not going to say you have issues.
You beat up Chief Z. I think you broke Chief Z's
broke his leg.
guy.
Broke his leg. And Bill Moss, the old the guy that used to do the games on Fox.
Yeah,
he's
Kansas City Chief.
One of the greatest lines I ever heard is that Philadelphia gives a new definition of the meaning nosebleed section. Every place at the old vet was the nosebleed section.
The old vet. They've cleaned it up at the link, though, because they know they've had a big problem. But they play in Brazil tomorrow, and they have been warned not to basically leave their hotel for safety reasons, and the crime and the gangs, and a couple of players on the Eagles have come out publicly and said, I don't know why we're doing this. He goes, I'm not. He goes, forget leaving the hotel. He goes, I'm not sure I'm leaving my room.
I would have thought maybe just the opposite. They go down there and go, shit, this ain't dick compared to where I'm from.
One quick sidebar, Riggo. I traveled with the Redskins back in the day when the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, and his first game was in Osaka. And traveled with the team, was part of that whole game day experience, and playing the 49ers and the OBC. And ridiculous 16 or 17 hour direct flight, chartered flight to Osaka. We get in
from Washington,
from Dulles, nonstop.
Wow! And so you guys must have went over Alaska and down that way.
It was brutal. I mean, just mind-blowing.
It's like going to Australia.
So by the time you get there, I remember we got in at 9 or 10 o'clock at night in Osaka. And Osaka's a seaport town. And it's bizarre. They don't speak English there. It's not a bilingual town. It's not big in tourism like Tokyo and some of the more popular cities. And it was the most oppressive heat and humidity. I mean, a bunch of us were puking just getting out in the air in the open after being on the airplane of how oppressive it was. But the most fascinating thing that I'll tie this back to what's going on in Brazil, we had to get a debriefing from the FBI and the local American consulate as we're checking into the hotel, and we're all in this conference room. And they were giving all the stats and stuff not to do over there in Osaka in particular because of the gangs and the this, and you could be. And
I don't think of Japan of having a big crime element to it, but obviously they got their own mafia over there.
No question. So everybody's tired of sitting in their seats, and I'll never forget.
Not really paying attention.
No, not paying attention at all. Then the FBI goes drugs. Now, I want to tell you guys one thing about drugs here. Drugs are highly illegal. If anybody has marijuana caught on them or with them, you see about 5 or 6 rookies start slumping in their chairs like this. We never laugh so damn hard. The guys are like, oh, no.
Had it written all over their face.
Can't make it up. So, yeah, these international games, they've got 5 this year.
That's the same thing I did in the game. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but years ago, this has been 20 years ago, when I was doing, Westwood 1, Mexico City. They had a game down. Same thing.
You did the game in Mexico?
Yeah, it was San Francisco, and it was, what's his name? I don't know if it's his first game, but Alex Smith.
Okay.
He was the #1 pick that year. And I can't remember who they played, to tell you the truth. But anyway, it's not important.
Well, they got 5.
But it was very simple. And let me tell you something. This was right shortly after 9/11.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it was the same year. I don't think so. It was a couple years later. But still, there was that, terrorist threat. They had, I think anybody could have walked into that state. You didn't need a ticket to get into that state.
Wow.
It was bizarre. It was like the security down there was zero.
Well, especially when you go back, 20-plus years to...
Well, it makes you wonder about the game in Brazil.
Well, I got to believe they're buttoned up more so than ever because, international expansion is huge for the league. There's 5 international games.
Do they think at some point in time that this league will become international?
100%.
In other words,
they'd love
in different continents.
Yes, they would love. Listen, Jacksonville and their owner.
I don't want to rain on a parade.
And the pot just keeps getting bigger. I don't see it either. Probably not in our lifetime. No. Just based on the fact, if you don't grow up playing the sport, your passion is,
right.
It's not the same.
And it's a one-off. They go down and they play the game, and people go, "Oh, wow, football!" But soccer's real football.
I did the London Bowl back in '92 with the Redskins, coming off of their Super Bowl win, and damn, we played the 49ers in that game too. And like I said, it's an event. It's not. There's not a big passion and a way of life for them.
It's a boutique.
It's like Taylor Swift coming to town and you want to see it one time.
Right.
That's great. And that's what it is. But they've been at this for some time. So tomorrow night in Brazil, then there's throughout the season there are 3 games in London, and the first time ever, I believe, in Munich, Germany.
Well, remember what did they call that league over there that they had for NFL?
Yeah,
couple guys would go over and play in it, and then they'd come back over here. So there were German teams.
Yeah,
and I remember years ago I was contacted by somebody in a league over there, and I was still playing or just right at the end of my run, had just retired, and there was what was the Budweiser league they had there in England, and they had different, and like I said, they were just. It was a fad kind of, I think,
right.
to us, and that's all I ever see in it being. It's but then again, you go basketball caught on. It's huge in Europe. It's big in China.
Well, again, access and the ability to play the sport doesn't take much. Like football,
correct.
Hockey, and lacrosse are baseball. You need 9 guys, right? You need 8.
Think of all the infrastructure you need for football.
Exactly. So those games they make more sense internationally, and that's why you're a big deal over in the UK and London. So you have a lot of fans over there,
right.
And the Redskins, because the Redskins were the first time that the Super Bowl was beamed into the UK. Yeah. And hey, left some Joel Riggins.
I'm living in the wrong country. They might still remember me over there.
Yeah.
No, a few people remember me here.
Come back,
that's probably to my advantage. I'd go back to being the smartest guy in the room, which we know is not a good thing.
So we kick it off tonight, and it's nonstop for about the next 6 months. So it's on, John. It is on.
It sure is. Yeah. We'll
so the
see
Washington Commanders, they take the field. Still don't know why they play at 4:25 on Sunday.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure
idea.
that out.
From a scheduling standpoint.
How many 4:25 games are there?
There are 2, and there's a total of, I believe, 4.
And Dallas is the other
Dallas
one.
is the national game.
And that's the national game.
That is the national game. You still have your same Sunday. CBS has the AFC. Fox has the NFC. NBC is Sunday Night Football. ESPN is Monday Night Football.
Thursday night, though.
Thursday night is Amazon.
Is that who's broadcasting the game tonight? Amazon?
No, I don't believe so. No,
so
it's not Amazon.
I was going to say, don't they flip-flop that? Different people get...
Well, that's usually the bigger boys that pay the bigger freight get the opening night game. And then Netflix bid, and Netflix
They're in it too?
Netflix is in it this year. They have 2 Christmas Day games. The 2 Christmas Day games, 2 Christmas Day games will be on Netflix for, I believe, for like the next 4 or 5 years.
Do you happen to know? This is an arcane question, but who their broadcast teams are?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
I do not.
You got to figure they have them, though,
You want me
right?
to pitch? Let's pitch Riggo. Let's get the big guy back in the booth. Crank up that diesel.
I got to tell you something, and I said this last week. This game's passed me by. I was just talking to my therapist this morning, talking about today's game is a finesse game. That's what they play today. Is finesse. There was some finesse, but let's face it, most of the old stuff that started in the started way back when, but started tapering off probably in the last 15, 20 years. And every year it seems like it's even a little bit more. But, that was meat and potatoes back then. Now it's pretty much all, chocolate chip cookies and, ice cream and the whole deal.
Well, the rules are bent.
Speaking of rules, you got to tell me what this.
Oh my goodness, John!
You got to break this on me if this is a good opportunity.
Huh? This new kickoff rule. This new kickoff rule. I'm gonna show it to you. You're gonna see it, and I want to get your unvarnished feedback because I know you haven't seen anything about it. You don't know about it.
I don't know a thing about it.
It's one of the biggest rule changes in years. And I still don't know. I still don't, A, have a good handle on, B, know how I feel about it.
And this is experimental.
Well, it's
when I say experimental,
it's on this year. I mean,
I know.
They can change it any year and every year. They do that
or fine tune it.
Yeah,
make it even more weird than it sounds like what it is.
All right, so we're gonna let me tee this up for you. All right, John, as the video is going to expertly show and demonstrate this. Here's the ball is still kicked from the 35-yard line. That remains the only constant. All kicking team players, other than the kicker, will line up with 1 foot on the receiving team's 40-yard line. With me?
So they've moved up 15 yards?
Yes. And the kicker
towards the goal.
The opponent.
Towards the opponent's goal.
Right.
15 yards.
15
so the kicker's
yards.
back at 35.
Yep.
The other 10 guys are up with 1 foot on the 40-yard line.
On the receiving team's 40. And the kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line until the ball touches the ground.
Or somebody catches it.
Or a player in the landing zone or end zone. The 10 kicking team players cannot move until the ball hits the ground, or a player in the landing zone or the end zone touches the ball. All right, so there'll be a setup zone for the receiving team. This is a 5-yard area from the receiving team's 30 to 35-yard line, where at least 9 receiving team players must line up.
On what yard line?
30 to 35.
What happened to the onside kick?
Don't even go there yet. Stay with today's lesson, because I'm having trouble keeping this together myself.
God. This is like if you're an official, what do you think when they came out with it?
7 players on the receiving team must have at least 1 foot on the 35. All right, so now look how close they are.
35 and 40, 15 yards apart.
No.
I thought you said 40 and 35.
40 and 35.
Oh, 5 yards apart.
5 yards apart. And all the players in the setup zone cannot move until the kick has hit the ground, or a player in the landing zone or the end zone. So basically, they're closer together. Nobody can move until it goes into the landing zone.
So they're basically trying to create a line of scrimmage.
Yes.
That was the brilliant.
See, I knew you'd get this really quick. A landing zone has been created for the receiving team, which is between the receiving team's goal line and the 20-yard line. So that 20-yard buffer, 0 to 20, is the landing zone. A maximum of 2 returners may line up in the landing zone and can move at any time prior to or during the kick. Any kick that hits in the landing zone must be returned.
That'd be the field of play landing zone.
Yes.
Or does that include the end zone?
The end zone.
I'm swimming.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But remember, so any kick that hits in the landing zone must be returned.
Must be
returned. And any kick that's short of the landing zone, which is 25 and forward, then the ball will be moved to the team's 40-yard line. So you got to make it to the landing zone or the end zone. So you can't have a short kick.
Right.
You sure?
So is there?
You sure you with me?
Not exactly. But
remember,
I'm still, because the players are still lined up 5 yards apart, right? Nine
Right.
against 7.
Can't move. Landing zone 0 to 20.
Landing zone 0 to 20.
So the ball's
zone,
got.
But the end zone would be. But that's not considered a landing zone.
That is.
Can you still have a kick?
Yes.
A touchback.
Any ball that will be kicked into the end zone will result in a touchback at the receiving team's 30-yard line. So they're given more yardage.
Another 5 yards.
So basically, they want the ball kicked 0 to 20. They want it in that landing zone. Collisions are going to be minimized because, like you say, they built this false line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
It could really.
But let me ask you this: in the last few years, the kickers, their legs are so strong, they kick it out of the end zone. Is there a penalty for kicking it out of the end zone? So there's no.
Well,
so
no,
there's
it's a touchback. It's a touchback.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but you get the ball at the 30, not the 25.
5 yards. I don't know. I'd really like to sit in this meeting and just not necessarily listen to them talk about it, just to see who the hell was in there cooking this up. It's like, who are you?
Ball kicked into the end zone will go to the receiving team's 30-yard line. Previous years, it was the 25.
Right.
They considered
back from the 20.
Back from
the old
the 20.
days.
Poor defenses. They're just sticking them to it. Defenses like, what do we got to do, guys?
Right.
What are we doing? I know you want to protect the quarterback and the
Right.
receivers. Now you want these guys to return the ball. So they did consider for a touchback to place it at the 35-yard line, but they tabled that for this year. So that is a big deal to see. They want the return in this new environment. They think it's going to be exciting for the game and juice up scoring, and it'll be interesting to see if it.
So there is no onside kick.
No, and you can only do onside kicks. I am not going to go down that rabbit, but you can only do them in the fourth quarter.
I figured it was going to be.
There's a special rule.
Try to get the ball back.
And I'm not even going down that rabbit hole because I want, it was talked about during the preseason, and nobody paid attention to the preseason except the people that are really, really into it. But when today's modern day fan and all the fans that are fans because Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and they're gonna wait a second. I thought the kickoff was so.
I'm one of
it's
them.
going to be a shock to the system for a lot of people that have never seen this in action. And they also the other big one was the hip drop tackle is banned.
Oh, and I can't remember what that is, but somehow it's almost like a wrestling move.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, if I come up and tackle you high and leave my feet and use my body weight to just
Cram you into the ground.
kind of like a rodeo move, right? Where you just,
bulldogging.
Yeah, that's it. So that has been banned now as well. So
Terry Bradshaw said it best, and I think he was still playing. So now we're talking about 40 years ago. Why don't they just put a skirt on everybody? That's what I said. This game is all finesse, and I don't think anything. It's just not the same game by any. And it's evolved. It's like anything else, like looking at yourself in the mirror. I've been looking at myself in the mirror. Well, I do it twice a day, maybe 4. I don't know. I don't want to get into that.
How'd you
I'm like Mac Harris. I get better looking each day. Oh, to know me is well. But anyway, the things that are so gradual over time, you really don't notice your own change. Well, it's the same thing with this game. Nobody really can appreciate how it's just because it's in microcosm. Well, I wouldn't even say it's that, a little bit more than that. But how, just like these rules and all this stuff, and the quarterback, you can't tell no, what is it called, horse collar tackle. Now there's no hip drop tackle.
Hip drop.
I don't know. Seriously, I was doing the Marina Football League games 20 years ago for NBC, and so basically a lot of their rules was copied out of the NFL rule book. I started reading. This is 20 years ago. The NFL rule book back then, and I was like, I can't even follow this. It was like reading a legal document. It's like I don't know what this means. And I thought to myself, I said, well, I guess once you get it down, you know what it is. But you got to give the refs credit, and maybe that's why you don't see younger refs. Well, no, you would. I still got a problem with the refs. That they're so old. It's like, to me, cut me some slack here. You should be being judged by, they say, judged by a quarter of your peers, right? Well, I'm sorry, 60-year-old guys out there running around with 30-year-old guys, that's not their peers.
Eyesight?
eyesight, the whole deal, speed, being able to put yourself in the right
Although,
position.
I will say,
and it's just that, you get an old, but that's the part, I've said this for years, it's the, what was the key beginning of the show today? Create the illusion. You've got an older guy out there. He's more experienced. You feel more like you're sitting
authority.
in front of exactly. A judge, all he needs, they ought to put robes on him, I guess.
Rigo doesn't like authority, man.
It's funny to say that. I was watching something last night, and it was all about authority. And, I thought, I think they're talking about me. Yeah, it's a show about the Navajo reservation out in Arizona, I guess, and the Navajo police, and the guy that was one of the Braves, one of the Navajoians or one of the Native Americans. When he was growing up, he had trouble with authority, and I'm sitting there thinking, I think he's talking to me.
The John Riggins story.
Yeah, John Riggins got a little problem with authority. I don't anymore because. You don't mess with Lisa Marie. So as the captain said in Cool Hand Luke, I've got my mind right. My mind is right.
What we have here. All right, Rigo, we'll wrap this bad boy up now on. So the Commanders play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think the spread is?
3.
Who?
I'm going to say. I don't know anything about Tampa. I'm going to say Tampa. They're the home team.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is the opening line was 3.5. Very good. Some of his
and let me tell you, that was just strictly pulled out of my rear end.
Well, you've been doing this a while. The instincts are
Todd,
still there.
I didn't know who they were playing until yesterday. I thought, gee, I'd be curious to know who they open up with because I was wondering actually more than anything, it was a home game.
Yeah, that's next week against the Giants. So the line to open at -3.5 in the favor of Tampa, and that would be -3.5, and it has stayed at 3.5. So we'll see what they got in the first game of the season. And one final tidbit here.
Okay.
How much do you think the estimated amount that U.S. adults will wager on NFL games
this year?
This year,
NFL games.
Just NFL.
Is it going to be $1 billion? No, it can't be that much.
This is from the American Gaming Association, who is right on money. So, John, last year it was $26.7 billion. This year it's projected to be $35 billion. $35 billion. So the rich get richer. This is, as you've seen the legalization across the country, let's see, we've got 3 more states that have launched legalized sports gambling in the last 12 months. Maine, North Carolina, and good old Vermont. So it's pervasive. It's everywhere. Everybody, it's that time of year, which is why the ratings and the passion and everything else, because all roads lead back to money.
You know, Todd, me, I'm a pretty open fella, and, authority, had issues with it all my life. But I have to say, this is the one thing that I would be that I'm conservative about. I think you read too many horror stories of people that have wrecked their lives wagering. Now, it wouldn't make any difference, I guess, but here's what's strange about it. I guess people have been wagering since the beginning of time, right? So that's something that's always going to be there. But by legalizing it, have they made it more available? I guess it's the same argument they talk about with marijuana, right? By making it more accessible, then more people are going to get involved in it, and which is going to be deleterious for our society, I guess. But I just, for the life of me, that the worst part of this is it's just like we were talking about. You can't hide from the NFL. You can't hide from college football. Everywhere you go, you're going to be reminded. Same thing with this stuff. You can't get away from
a problem already.
The way that the casinos, you know what, we're going to give you 3 free bets this week for $100, whatever it is, but it's just like lure them in, suck them in. Got to give them credit. They know how to make money.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're good. And you know who else is good? John Riggins.
All righty. I guess that wraps it up, huh, Toddy?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's me for Todd and everybody else out there. Hope everybody has a good week for the rest of the week. And this is El Rigo, and I am out.